Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I'm your host, Joe Garrett, being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello. How you doing?
Right, I'm doing good. We've been planning this for a long time. This is our first time ever doing either a podcast together or anything like this together, really.
Well, not our first time doing anything together ever.
Yeah, no, not ever. So to give you a quick background of who we are, so we've been friends since secondary school, so a very long time, both very dedicated gamers, and we chat about games all of the time and have a joke around, and we thought, why not do that on a podcast and see if anyone else wants to join in the conversation.
Oh, that was very succinct. I was very impressed by that.
I'd surprise myself.
Yeah.
To give an explanation of what it is, basically we're going to pick a game and then we play through it. We will talk through the game, kind of say what we thought about it. It's going to be a mixture between new releases and some kind of old classics that maybe we want to introduce the other person to. And then we're going to be ranking them on one giant leaderboard where we're going to have maybe a debate, maybe we agree, and choose the position for where it's going to go on one consistent leaderboard.
Cool. Yes, again, very succinct.
Are you just here to review me?
I just can't believe how succinctly. Have you got a script?
I'm not reading that. I promise you, I'm not reading that.
I know I said that you should host because you've got more experience than me, but like the previous podcast I was on, the host was great, but this is like, another level.
I just love why you just look happy to be here.
Of course I'm happy to be here. Why wouldn't I be?
I guess it's a pretty good time to point out one of our other passions other than gaming is comedy as well. And like a lot of the time that we spend together, we're just laughing like the whole time. So I know it kind of sounds a little bit dry with the explanation about like talking in depth about these games and ranking them, but we're not going to be too serious about it. Like we could even throw things on the list that aren't video games or, just kind of mess around. And like when we're ranking them, we can kind of like bargain and put up some of our other games that we had on the list for sacrifice to get other ones bumped around and stuff. And also we want you to hopefully be able to give some points, give some suggestions as well. And then if this podcast grows a bit and we get an audience, then hopefully we'll be able to read out some kind of comments and questions from listeners as well.
We might have to cut out you saying that we like comedy if we get to the end of this and it's not funny.
I can't.
Like we love laughing, and then it's just like
I thought about that. I said we like comedy. I didn't say we're funny. I said like we laugh like when we're together. I didn't say we're comedians.
No.
Yeah.
Good. Do you want to set us up to fail?
Yeah. I guess one last bit of housekeeping is that I don't know where you're listening to this from. It will be on, I guess, all of the major podcast platforms. That's kind of your area of expertise.
Yes, hopefully. Well, if you're listening to it, you found it.
Yeah,
so
it's here.
Yeah,
I guess if you're listening to the audio-only version, there is going to be a YouTube version as well, a video version, and that's the bonus points. The bonus points on YouTube. If you search it, you should hopefully be able to find us there, and you'll just see our lovely faces and a bit of the gameplay as well for whatever game we're playing.
Which you've recorded.
Yes, it's done.
Original content you've recorded just for this show.
Yeah, absolutely. So if the gameplay is awful and I'm failing a lot, not so much the game we're talking about now, but maybe the next game we talk about, you might see some embarrassing.
I was going to say, I think you struggle to like fail this game.
Yeah. I guess let's. It's no suspense because they can see it in the title. But do you want to talk about what game we're playing?
So for our first game, we have picked The Forgotten City. Which was developed by Modern Storyteller, and I believe it actually started life as a mod.
Yes, so it was originally a mod for Skyrim,
right.
And it was made by one person originally. But it was, even though it was a mod, it was like really big. Like it won awards, and it was really in depth. But then it's now created in its as it's a standalone game. I think it was in Unreal. Was it made in? I think it.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny though, like if one person, imagine all the voices he had to do the first time. Every character was one guy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I say developed by one, I'm sure they had help, but I mean, you know what I mean.
What else could we say? Oh, neither of us had ever played it.
No.
This was first. We just heard good things. It was available on Xbox Game Pass, so it was like easy. Let's go ahead and play it. Also, it's pretty interesting in terms of like how it works.
We both knew the concept of the game, and that was it. I guess before we get into it, I should probably say, like, it's probably pretty obvious, but it's like spoiler warning. Like, the whole point is we're chatting in depth about the game, and this game more than others, like, there's no way we can talk about it without spoiling it. Maybe more gameplay, rather than story focused games. You could watch listen to this before playing it, but I'd say if you have any interest in playing it, as Ollie said, it's on Game Pass and it's not very long. Like, probably play it before listening to this.
There is actually a big warning on the title screen that says, like, don't spoil it or something, but I can't actually remember what it says.
No, it says content, because I took note that says content creators, like, if you're like streaming it or doing videos, please give a spoiler warning after this point. So, like, because there are plot twists and it is a very story heavy game. Okay. So they weren't saying like don't talk about it, they were just saying like let people know, because it's a weird. Do you want to kind of talk about just what the setup for like the world and the story is?
Yeah, so let's go into it and then we'll put up the spoiler warning at the end of this bit. Okay, so basically the premise is there's this city. So it's a first-person game. Let's start with that. You walk around and talk to people who live in this city where if anyone commits a sin or breaks what they call the golden rule, everyone in the city will turn to gold. And when you get there, you speak to a guy that's like, I've summoned you here, and I need you to find out who's about to commit the sin, so we all turn to gold to stop it from happening. That's kind of as much as you can say.
Yeah,
without
I guess there's the time loop element as well, because otherwise it doesn't roll credits the first time someone commits a sin.
So you run around and talk to everyone, and you can do things like you can normally do in an RPG, like you can like pick stuff up and like inspect things. But if you do commit a sin or break the rule, so the easiest one to break is stealing. So you can go in someone's house and just take something of theirs, and the rule is broken. And then obviously all hell breaks loose. Everyone does get turned to gold, but then it resets and you go back to the beginning of the day that you turned up in the city. So yeah, that's pretty much. I don't know. It's weird. I don't want to say anything about the spoiler warning.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, this is like that was the barrier. You've gone through it. If you're still here, hopefully you've either played the game or just know you're never going to play the game, and then you're committed. Okay, right. Let's talk about the ending.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think interestingly, before we do get into it, we should quickly say there is multiple endings.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them did you get?
I only did 2 of them.
I only did 2 as well, and I'm worried we did two same ones.
Yeah, maybe. I guess let's not jump straight to that.
Yeah.
Let's get to the endings at the end.
Yeah.
First, I want to talk about, because I knew the premise of the game, but I didn't really know what to expect going in. Is it what you expected, or did you expect it to be different in tone or any other way?
Well, the first thing that I thought was really surprising is that I thought the graphics were really good. Like, it looked a lot, because I knew it was an indie game. Obviously not expecting it to look rubbish, but like, it looked great. And
it was only about 4 or so key developers. I was watching in the credits, and like I was kind of reading a bit. Like they expanded the team after the mod, but it was a handful of people. Yeah,
like, it looked amazing, and the music was amazing as well, which I wasn't expecting. I absolutely loved the soundtrack. There was a few weird things at the beginning that I wasn't expecting. Like, the whole, like, there's this bit where you meet this woman called Karen.
Yeah.
And they like go in. I actually wrote a note about it. Like, they go into like, oh, it's a meme. Like,
let me see.
I was like, what?
Yeah, because that surprised me. But like, I kind of liked it, because I was a little bit worried that it might be a bit like, I don't know, like somber or serious or even pretentious with the premise. And that kind of like, so that it really took me off guard when there was what seemed to be a modern day woman, called Karen, joking about the memes and stuff. I was like, okay. And I think the whole game, I was happily surprised at how, like, I guess inverted commas, like, playable it was. Like, it was, I never felt like confused or lost, or whether it was like preaching it to me. Like, I think the dialogue had a great balance between, you know, setting up like the characters and the world, but like not wasting your time. And it would even be very conscious. It would say like, you'd say like, oh, where did you come from? And they'd be like, I mean, it's quite a long story. Are you sure you want to hear? And I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm committed. I'll listen to your story.
I just felt too rude every time. I just listened to it over and over again.
you pressed listen to it and then put a podcast on, but they wouldn't know.
Yeah, I just like, I can't be like, you know, there's one guy that's like, do you want me to tell you about, you don't want me to bore you about the city? And you can say correct.
Yeah.
And every time I was like, no, I have to be like, oh, it's really interesting. Like, thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah, no, I remember that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Karen joke was weird, but like, I appreciated it. I'm glad it's a light-hearted game. They mentioned the pandemic as well at the beginning.
Yes, the COVID, when they say about like, your like your safety is reliant on like the common sense of others, and they were like, "Oh, tell me about it."
And the last bit that made me laugh right at the start was when you run past Aurelia, and Galerius is like, "Keep it in your loincloth, Aurelia," when she's like flirting with you. I was like, "This is great."
Yeah. Yeah, and then someone like, you know, like Dooley, there was like, you know, the guy in the cage. There's kind of some fun stuff with him.
Yeah. Poor
and
Dooley,
some of the yeah. But by the way, I'll say like I'm so bad with character names for any games. Like Ollie knows this. I've got a list of all of the characters and like a brief little like description, like Galerius, the first guy you meet, and like Sentia, rude sister, and like a little, because so if I hesitate when I'm saying everyone's name, it's because I'm either struggling to pronounce it, forgot their name, or both. So yeah, so just bear that in mind.
I've also got your list open because that's pretty handy. But I think maybe we should go into how it actually works. So you go in, you learn information from these people you speak to, and they may or may not give you something that when time resets, you not only have the information, but you also have the thing that they gave you. That's pretty important, and something, to be honest with you, towards the end, I actually forgot that you keep the stuff on you when you travel back, and then I ended up having like so 6 important. Keys of the same key. Because
I struggled as well, because there was the bit where it doesn't really matter for this, but for some reason you need to have like 2,000 gold or whatever the currency is.
Denarii.
And I was like, where am I going to? And I'd been getting like little bits of like 100 gold here and stuff. And then I realized that the reason they needed this money was to pay someone back. And I was like, wait, I can just steal the money and everything's going to turn to gold. But then I can restart, and then I have the money, and then they still have the money. So you can almost do like a duplication glitch, you know, like it would be in another game. Which kind of gave some really smart solutions, but also once again feeds into how conscious it is of your time, because there's been a lot of time loop games recently. And, you know, for example, another one, 12 minutes. I don't know. Did you play 12 minutes?
I didn't finish it, but I did play it.
Yeah, no, I was in the same boat.
Everyone started talking about how much it wasn't actually that good, and I was like halfway through, and I was like, I'm not going to finish that then. That's done.
So I was just playing it generally, but there's some similarities to it. But that is a game where every time you're kind of restarting, you're having to kind of do a big laborious thing, and sometimes you might work something out, but not. And I think there's interesting things in the game. But this is a game where, because you keep the items, if you do a bunch of work to get the key, even though there's no actual checkpoint, everything resets, you can go straight back in. And then the character that greets you, Galerius, is also a great little helper, isn't he?
He is a lovely AI, that guy. When you give him, so all the things that you do, so all the little missions you beat for all these people, rather than having to do them every time resets, you can come out and tell Galerius to do it for you. And
and he's like, all right,
in the end, he has like 5 or 6 things he has to do. But then at the end of those things, you have to speak to him to like...
Yeah, he's like, I want to talk to you again.
So the first time I did it, I lost him. So the second time I did it, I just followed him around. And he's
Had
like,
to learn his route.
yeah. So I just ran behind him, and he was like, "You need to give her this whitlock." Oh, but I can't tell you why. Gotta run. Just like runs up, and I was just behind him. Like, this is great. Like, the little
It's
useful
like,
idiot
I don't
that he
have
is.
time to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You give it to him, and then just follow him anyway.
Exactly.
Like a weird power trip.
Yeah, and then it would be like, because like Galerius will be waiting for the next person to speak to, like who passes him, but he'll just be standing there, like, and then you go and speak to him, and it's like, Galerius looks a little busy right now.
Yeah,
and he's just
no,
like,
I made a note of that. So I had that. So when he finishes his quest that he goes on, like he plays like basically a whole game of himself every reset, and then he ends up by that like farm area. And I went there to speak to him, and he was standing there in the middle of the field, like looking at a waterfall like this. And then I was just like I needed to speak to him because I wanted to, get him to become the leader of the land or whatever. And he was like, he's busy right now. And I was like, I've never seen a less busy man in my life. But it went on for like minutes. And like, I was with my partner in the room as well. We were just laughing because I kept going away and do other stuff. I'd come back and he just hasn't, and he's not even like doing an animation cycle. Yeah. He's not even like, he's just standing there and it's like, he's a bit busy right now. And I'm like, what? Is he like meditating? Like, what's he doing? Yeah. But yeah, he was a legend. So yeah, I guess I just kind of want to know, how did you approach the game? Because it's quite open. You're kind of given like a very immediate quest saying like, oh, someone was, screaming over here. You can go that way. But you don't have to. You can go and talk to anyone at that point and kind of, start many different quests. So were you quite focused, or were you trying to talk to everyone and get all of your information and then decide what to do?
Well, I think what I basically was doing, I was just trying to do it like a checklist. Yeah. Your objectives are basically like a checklist.
So it's just one objective the whole way down and then the next?
Yeah,
or
like... exactly. So I was trying to get all the way to the end of each one. Hit a bit of a speed bump when it came to the quest where Malus was actually using a second identity. Because
which one's that?
Have you not? Did you not do that one? Oh, you must have done. Wait, I can't say his name. Malaleus, or whatever. He's actually Quinctius.
Oh yeah, the other person who wants to be the leader. Yeah, when the assassin is trying to get him.
So that was the only quest that I got to a point where I was like, I don't know what to do, and even the conversation was like, I know you're not who you say you are, but I can't prove it yet.
Yeah,
and that was the only time that I was like, I have no idea what to do right now.
Did you often have it when like there seemed like a very obvious dialogue option you want to say and it's just not there as an option?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so where I had that was, there's a guy called Virgil, the prosecuted gay guy.
Yeah.
And I got Galerius to cure Rufius, who is the guy that's like abusing him, basically, like sending him horrible letters. But I couldn't get Virgil to be like, oh yeah, I will vote for Galerius in like the thing, because he didn't know that he was the one that
he's
cured
like, my vote's not for sale.
Yeah. I was to be like, no, listen, like, you should vote for him because he helped you, and like,
yeah. Well, I'd like ones for like, so one of the things that drove me crazy. So there's a missing sister, basically. There's the main guy, and then there's two sisters. One's missing, and like every time you walk past her or like past like a guard, they're like, oh, let us know if you hear anything about my sister. So yeah, I found the sister almost just by accident. I think there's a whole quest that you're meant to go through to find her, but I just kind of stumbled across her.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not in an obvious place, but I was just going through this almost like dungeon-like area and found her. And then I was like, great, I found her. And so I went to go back to like tell the sister, and there just wasn't any option.
Yeah.
And I was just, and then in the end I found if I asked her about something else, I could get her to start talking about her sister. But then my option was to say, ooh, I found this pendant that might lead to her. Right. And like, I couldn't just say, like, I just spoke to her. Like, I could do was like talk about, and then eventually if I kept talking through it, she'd go, I would be able to tell her. And then I had the same case with, there's a character that's poisoned and you need to cure them. And then you find out that she poisoned herself. And I found that information, and I read like her note that, her suicide note that she left. But then when I'd go to like talk to someone else, I'd be like, oh, I got to work out who poisoned her, like find out who. And I was like, well, I know she did it herself. And that was something that kind of came up quite a few times where I just didn't have the option that seemed so obvious.
I feel like maybe we might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Like maybe the main quest line, as far as I can tell, because obviously I only got 2 of the endings, but it feels like the main quest line in the game is the first guy you meet, the useful idiot, Galerius. You need to make him be nominated as magistrate, which is essentially like the prime minister or the president of this little town. And in order to do that, you need to get all of the people to vote for him. And in order to get them to vote for him, you have to complete the quests for them and then convince him to go and do it. So therefore he is appearing as the kind guy that's running around and done it all. So yeah, that's the whole, like what I was saying about Virgil, like he's getting abused by some other guy, and but then Galerius ultimately sorts it out. So all the little things we're saying, like Joe mentioning, woman who got poisoned but then cured. Actually, Galerius is the one that ends up curing them. So that's kind of how it all is structured. And as far as I know, that's what you're meant to be going for.
Yeah, I think, because as I say, there's a few endings. That seems to be like kind of, I guess, the main, or at least the ending that you're going to get to after playing the game the most. There's kind of some like kind of quite sharp, more negative endings that you can do a little bit earlier on. But I guess before we talk about that, there's some quite big twists that happen before that. So like, did you suspect, say Sentius, who was the magistrate when you arrived, the one who is kind of doing this ritual to rewind time, but it turns out that he remembers everything that has been happening and he's not getting reset in the same way that everyone else is. What do you think of that moment? I thought that was really cool.
I mean, it was good, but like, I can't remember why he remembers.
So the way that the game justifies it is that there must be some unintended thing when what's the name of the god who became a human? Begins with P.
Persephone?
Yeah, Persephone. When she created this ritual, she accidentally made it so the person doing it would remember and not be reset. So they kind of both have a little like line in there just to justify it, why he does. You think that sorry, he'd be like battling you a lot more, because obviously he can remember and he can see that you're turning everyone against him. Why is he not going right, reset? Yeah, exactly, because he pushes you to try and find out who's causing the golden rule, isn't he? So I guess would it matter if you did find out who stopped the golden rule? Because he can still reset time anyway. Like, or does everyone need to be turned to gold for him reset it? I think the point of the game is that anyone can break the golden rule, and there isn't a one person that's going to break it. Because I didn't find the one person that's going to break it, unless it was me. So what I thought it was the his opponent, the person you're mentioning who's got secretly someone else, is if he got voted in, he would immediately send his guard to attack Sentius, the previous. And so that seemed like that would happen no matter what. If you didn't pick up the controller, I felt like that would play out. So it kind of, in my head, that was like the main sin that needed to be avoided.
But then when you tell him that, it doesn't end it.
No, you can get past it. But it seems like that's the sin that would happen if you weren't an input.
When you tell Sentius, like, oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be Malleus, he doesn't go like, oh, thank you very much, and then like the credits roll.
Oh no, because he doesn't care. He's just he basically just wants to he just wants to live forever, and so he's happy to relive the same day again and again and again in order to live forever.
With his beautiful villa and the sun shining on his face, as he says.
Yes.
But I still think it would be too annoying to live the same day over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the game. I wouldn't want to play it for like 100 hours.
So, which was the first ending that you got then?
So my first ending was when I shot him with an arrow. Did you do that?
No.
So yeah, because if you kill him or freeze him in gold, he can't reset the time. So that kind of yanks you straight out of it, because also he's the person who brought you in. Basically, you never get joined, and then you get a really weird cutscene with Al, who is the character that Karen initially sent you to go in to find. And he basically says, like, wait, so you let everyone turn to gold and now you've just left to live in the real world. You're really horrible. And then it rolls credits. And I was like, okay, let's find another ending that doesn't make me feel so mean.
Okay, so my ending, I think, ultimately was the same, the first one I got. But I freed Centilla, and she was like, if you keep him distracted, I will kill him. And then she basically sets fire to him.
Okay, so
and then we
that
run
would be the
away
same
together
result.
through the like tube or whatever it was. We basically got out. And then I was like, I got that in 5 loops, that ending, and I was like, God, that was easy. And then I was like, when it came up and was like 2 of 4, I was like, okay, I need to go back.
And also that'd be a really rubbish, because that'd be the same. Everyone else would turn to gold, I guess, but you escape. So it's
so that's what happens, isn't it? Like you can see the world shaking, like it's gonna, the rapture's gonna happen, but then you just leave. Yeah.
Did you expect this game was going to have, like, this might sound stupid, like, gameplay? Did you, like, combat and, like, a bit of parkour?
And I was actually really happy when that happened.
Yeah.
I think that bit, so there's a combat section where you go through this, well, it's like a lab, I guess, for lack of a better word, where a lady is trying to turn the gold people back to human. She finds out they're still alive inside the gold. But she decides she's going to peel their skin off. I don't know why. She thinks that's the best course of action. But that section I actually thought was really cool. It had like a bit of jumping around. It had like shooting. You have a bow and arrow that can basically turn people to gold. So you basically use that to stop them. That section was great. I think that one, the 2 times it does that, were my 2 favourite parts of the whole game. Also, I love kicking the statues.
Oh yeah, they like flip back. Because I was wondering, like, why have they made it so? Because they're meant to turn to like gold, I guess they're encased in gold, not solid gold, but still they'd be heavy. And I was like, I know why they've done that. It's because if you turn one of them into gold in a doorway and you can't get through, you got to be able to. But the sound it makes and the way they flip,
it's only a little foot coming up. It's
so like Duke Nukem, like. Duke Nukem, where you'd be kicking with both legs, like going back and forth.
Very quickly, did you manage to get the statue out the way of the door? Sorry, the statue out the way of the door, the lady and they're like, oh, there's a treasure behind it, but we can't get past it.
No, in the caves. How did you do that?
You have to cause the rapture, and she comes to life. We'll chase you with a bow and arrow, then run round her. And
then you whiz round. Too smart for me.
Do you want to know what's in
there? Go on then.
5,000 gold and 7 arrows or something.
Well worth it. So your genius has been rewarded. No, that is clever though. See, that's what I was worried the game would be like. Expect me to be actually smart and not have like waypoints. As I said, like it's like I didn't expect to have like a health bar. When there was like I saw there was like cables, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can zip line around. And then I was like, don't be stupid. This isn't Far Cry or something. They're not going to let you zip line around the town. And then when you go back, like Galerius is like, here's my handy zip line tool that I created. I was like, okay, no, there is actually zip lining around. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, this was a Skyrim mod. Of course, there's like a bow and arrow section, and even like the design of like that. Like some of the caves are really reminiscent, and then of course when you talk to a character, like the awkward zoom in.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. And they're always like this. Yeah. I mean, this is for the video watchers. It's not for the audio, but they're like this.
For people listening to the audio version, Ollie did what you can imagine in your head of when you talk to a distracted character. It's always great when there's like a group of characters and you talk and they like are looking through all of the other characters into your soul.
Or when like 3 of them walk past, they're all doing the exact same walk animation.
Yeah. Yeah, you can really see where it came from. But like you, I was really impressed. Like, it looked really well. Did you have any really good? Sorry. Did you have any technical?
He's so healthy. He's such a healthy game.
Oh, you look good.
Yeah,
you keeping well.
Glow about it.
Oh, that daily sunshine is really helping you out. Did you have any like bugs or technical issues or anything that like took you out of it?
Not a single. Not a spot. Oh no, actually, there was one. So just before we started recording, I was like, I'm determined to get another ending, and I couldn't get Virgil. Every time I asked him who he's going to vote for, it would just quit. and go back to me standing in the market. Not really
Oh,
a big
really?
deal. Yeah, so all I had to do was wait for the election to be called.
Oh, sorry, it would just kick you out the conversation.
Back to the market area. But all I had to do is wait for it to be called, the election to be called, and then for Galerius to be like, "Oh, I'd like to run." And then
did you know you can bring the election forward?
Yeah, thank God.
Okay, I was going to say when you're like waiting for the election.
No, it was I went. So basically, what I would do is put my objective to ask, what's that lady's name? Aquisha. Ask Aquisha about the underworld, so it showed me where she was on the map, and then I would just sprint to her and be like, "You should run the election now." But then waiting for her to run up the stairs, I was trying to talk to Virgil to be like, "Who are you going to vote for? Let's do it." But then every time it would just kick me out. But then eventually, after Galerius said he was going to run, I could then ask him, and he was like, "Yeah."
Yeah. I had a few things, like nothing game breaking or anything, especially considering the size. So one was quite funny. So there was the in the main area, there's like kind of like a tomb place, like just off the main square where you can go down, and there's one of the kind of living gold statue things down there, that place. So I went down there, and then that guy's like, "I wouldn't go down there, there's something scary." And I was like, "Oh, I'll see about this." I didn't have a weapon or anything, I just went down, and then it like ran up the stairs for me, and I went to kick it, and I just kicked it right through the wall.
Nice! That's how you found it by accident.
Yeah. So I did get because I needed the So you have another like kind of surprising gameplay element is you have the bow and you can shoot gold at the vines to climb up. So I didn't have the bow, so I couldn't finish that area, but I could explore it stress free. But I could still hear it was there on the other side of the wall going like, "Rah!" And I was just like, okay. But I was like, is there any more of them? But I was just fine. So I had that, which was quite funny. The slightly annoying one is every time I loaded up the game, I would have to set my controller to be inverted again. It would always
I think that's more of a you problem.
Yeah, maybe they're making a point against inverted play. They're like, no, you will learn. But yeah, and then I had some waypoints not showing up, and then also I'm kind of marking it as a bug, even though it was funny, the Galerius busy not busy moment at the farm, because it was annoying. I had to literally wait there for like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah. So how many loops did it take you to get your first ending then?
I'm not sure. So it took me 7 loops to get to the point where Sentius reveals who he is, because he tells you. That's
what I'm saying. Yeah, so you'll know.
Yeah, and I thought that was quite cool, the fact that he like mentions that. But until finishing it, I'm not sure. But I wasn't like trying to be efficient. I would like, if I wanted a bit of money, I'd just steal some money and reset it. Or I'm like, I'm not sure where this is going. Let me reset and kind of go down another route. So my guess to get to like my first big ending would probably be about 15 or so, maybe. So
did you get the achievement for looping more than 10 times?
I don't have notifications on, so I'm not sure if I got the
That's
achievement.
how I know how many I did, because I'm like, I counted. So basically it took me 5 to get my first ending, which was freeing Scintilla, and then it took me 12 to finish the game. And the reason for that is there's a lady, Aurelia, who you have to flirt with, and she's like, "Oh, maybe if you had tens of thousands of denarii, I'd be impressed." And I was like, "Oh, for God's sake, am I going to have to like..." Basically what I was doing is going in, robbing her, and then coming out, shooting Ivari or whatever her name is, and then just like resetting. But then I was like, oh yeah, there's actually a little bit of money in the lake area.
Yeah.
So I was like, I should incorporate that into my little run. And the first time I did it, I found the bottle of wine, which is what I was trying to buy off of Aurelia in the first place.
Yeah.
So I was like, great, I've done it. Like, I didn't need to do it any more than that. So it only took me 2 loops before I realised that's where she was hiding it. So yeah, 12 loops. As far as I know, I got the big ending.
But before we get to the ending, just in general, like, what did you think of like the characters and the writing and the voice acting? Like, how would you rate it?
I think the voice acting was quite camp, but I liked it. Yeah, it was fun. But I think these things kind of suffer, like, especially when you're from the UK and like everyone from the old times speaks in a British accent. And it's like, they just sound like people that we know.
Yeah.
I thought the only guy that didn't really do it for me was Rufius.
Yes. I swear we got the same. He's just too over the top and gruff, and also like so that it's basically coming out that like so I never actually solved the altercation with him and Virgil. So Virgil is a gay character who's getting hate. You find out it's from Rufus, and I could kind of work out from my dialogue that Rufus was the one doing it, and I suspected it was because he's also gay, fancies Virgil, but he's a Christian and it feels it's going against his religion. Is that right?
He doesn't say that, but you're pretty.
But it's kind of implied.
Yeah, exactly. You're pretty much there.
And so you talk to him, and you'll be like, "Oh, well, you're, maybe like, does it make you uncomfortable being around him?" And he goes like, well, no." And like it's almost like I don't know, like a kid's show when it's like a character like pretending like that they've done their homework, and they're like, I did not do it. Yes, no, and it was, but then in like this really gruff voice, and it was a little bit too far on the caricature.
I don't not fancy him.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Isn't he? He's a Spartan, right? He's like a Spartan warrior, so he probably.
Yeah, he's got like the outfit.
Well, so So basically what happens is he's got rheumatism in like his joints or something, and that's hurting him, and he's taking it out on Virgil. Yeah. So you have to cure him. And then when you cure him, well, Galerius cures him, then you just speak to him about it a bit, and you're like, it's not very nice, is it? I found the note that you wrote in your house. Don't be horrible to Virgil. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I will go and clean the graffiti off the wall. And then when he goes to clean the graffiti, he says to Virgil, like, oh, actually, Galerius sorted me out. We're actually mates. Sorry about that.
So I never did that. So that is actually where most of my loops came from. Is I didn't know about that. I was just through dialogue trying to get him to like stop being mean to Virgil, and so I kept going. But it gets to a point where like if you're speaking to him too much, he just goes like, "I have nothing more to say to you." And then every time you got to talk to him, he's like, "After Cleaner, go away!" Like he just like wait. And then I'd reset, and I thought, oh, maybe I did the wrong option. But eventually, I'd done every option. But yeah, I never did that. So I got the guy who wants the bow. I got him to vote for Galerius, and he's the only one that I went out of my way to get to vote.
So
everyone else, it kind of just happened because I was trying to save the people that needed saving anyway. And then everyone else just kind of, because it was only the men that can vote. Everyone else kind of, I think, just from other actions I had done, kind of liked Galerius anyway, and so it kind of ended up being that way because was it Fabia who's the person at the beginning? Fabia, because she had been saved anyway because Galerius told her not to go, and that's just an option I choose at the start anyway. So there was only one person where I had to sit down and think, how am I gonna get them to change their mind? And so that was Decius, the greedy market man.
Yeah, how did you? Because he double crosses you quite in the beginning. When you go to get the bow, and he's like, he basically traps you in there, and he's like, well, you're done now unless you give me the bow, and you manage to get out.
Yeah, so he traps you with a hornet's nest.
Yeah, so after he did that, I hated him, and I never spoke to him again. So how did you?
So you missed out on so one of the best things. So this guy traps you, and he thinks you're all trapped, but then you escape.
So I did that.
Then on the same loop, if you go back to him, you're just like, hey.
I did that
with this bow that I get, and he's all like, oh, it was just a prank or whatever he says, like to justify it, and then you can scam him. So if you go to another loop, you show up with the gold bow that he really wants, and you say, hey, I'm going to tell you where I got this bow from if you give me this money, and you can get 5,000 gold from him. And he says, oh, if you tell him how to get it, and then you say, oh yeah, I got it from that statue in there with the hornet's nest, and he's like, oh, you double crossed me. And all of the options are like really satisfying, like like mean things to like say, like, yeah, it's your own fault, like, see you later. And so that was one of my favorite moments, is just winding this guy up.
So how did you end up getting him to vote then?
I ended up getting I can't. It's something to do with like money or something. There was some. I can't remember exactly what I needed to do. But he's the one who I changed their mind. But I can't remember exactly what I needed to do for him to get him to change their mind. I might have just bribed him with money, to be honest. That wouldn't be surprised me.
Yeah. So I'm assuming from then on, Galerius became magistrate. Then you can free Dooley, who's the prisoner, who's holding the last piece of the puzzle that you need to.
Yeah, you're trying to get these tablet things to then get into the big shrine, and then it seems like there's a couple endings that come from that section. So what was the first ending you got there?
Well, I only got one ending there because I was really rushing because I was like, I'm close to the end.
Oh, so was when you played right before the podcast, had you never been to that area?
No. That's why I was like, I need to do this because I stepped into the like spaceship or whatever it was. Oh, so before we started recording, I text Joe as a joke, like, did you get the UFO ending?
I know!
But then I played it and it actually was in space.
Yeah,
so I was okay, I guess I predicted that.
We were pranking each other because we were making like the rules for like saying we're not going to talk at all about this game until the podcast. But then I sent across the character list and I was joking saying I should have put on like the goblin troll or something as a character, and Ollie would think like he missed something. But yeah, talk about it because the ending. So for the setting, obviously it started off in real world time, kind of modern day. Then you go back to kind of this sort of ancient kind of Roman/Greek /Egyptian kind of land, which is all kind of a bit magical with the landscape. But then, the ending, it has a huge shift and, as you say, almost goes sci-fi.
Yeah, so you find out that each of the like famous eras of history have all done their time within the Forgotten City and all built upon each other. And all of their gods, from like Egyptian gods and Greek gods, are all actually talking about the same person.
Yeah.
So when you go to meet this person, you kind of walk through these different corridors representing each area. So the Greek area, the Egyptian area. And in the last one, you're like, oh, can I hang out with Pluto or something? You have to ask him. And then it opens the door and it's literally like Halo. Like
the light bridge.
Yeah. So I literally was like, I took a picture of it because my friend, I haven't been wanting to look up anything. But my friend Chris has been kind of like nudging me in the right direction. So like shout outs to him. But I took a picture of the screen. I just put, what on earth is going on? So I go up to him and he's basically like saying that he's like all powerful and he's trapped these people here because he doesn't want his loved one to die. He's like encased in glass or ice or something. To be honest with you, I was kind of mashing because I was late for this podcast recording, so I was like reading it, but I was like, no.
I said finish it.
I know, but your tone, I was like, oh no.
What was my tone?
You were like, we set the time at 6.
No, my point. Ollie was saying we were recording at 6. I got to clear my back here. I was saying like the reason we're doing it at 6 is because we said that. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's not like an arranged thing with anyone else. I was saying like we came up with the time. We can change the time.
Okay.
That
I
was
thought
my
you were being
point.
like, we said 6. Where are you?
As if I feel like that. We said 6. We're doing it at 6.
Exactly. So anyway, I mashed through, and then he's like, "This is my loved one, Persephone." Turns out she's actually been trying to communicate with you the whole time.
There's been whispers. We haven't mentioned the whispers.
Yeah, I'm thinking like maybe this podcast can be really hard to keep up with people that haven't played the game because we're just like.
Well, no, but that's the point. This podcast is really meant for people that have played the game because of the spoilers. So hopefully people have just played it and will have a decent idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the statues whisper to you the whole time. They're like, "Oh, we're looking through his eyes, and like we're hearing through your ears and stuff like that." Anyway.
Ollie, be careful. Your mic's hitting your chain and rustling a little bit every now and then.
Well, it won't be in the recording, though.
Oh, is that not in the...
No.
Okay.
Leave that in, though. It's a nice little
behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Draw back the curtain.
Yeah, a peek behind the screen, as it were.
Yeah. And we did say 6 o'clock. Anyway, how do you find...
Don't raise your voice. So anyway, Persephone's like, they're encased in glass or something, and then she's like, I'll take my crown. And I don't know what she says why to take it, but anyway, you take it, and then your objective changes to restart the loop, show the Lord of the Underworld that you have the crown. And then that's when Joe rang me and was horrible to me. So I was like, I've got to do one more loop.
That's when the vulgarity began.
Yeah, exactly. You put the Garrett in vulgarity.
Vulgarity!
So yeah, then I ran back, saw him again, and was like, straight away, first option was like, look, here's the thing. And then we managed to convince him to let everyone go. basically, where he was like, I think he thought he was doing like a battle of the wits, but really all I was doing is I was going through every dialogue option until they ran out.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what's your next question? And I was like, well. And he's like, well, that's interesting.
Well, I forget you said something stupid and wait for the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ultimately I was let out and got to the ending where you meet Al and Karen and they just chat for a bit and then they go, oh, we're going back to the land of the living, and then that's kind of it.
Where did you get the modern day section?
Yeah, so you go back to like where you go into the temple at the beginning.
No, did you get the museum scene?
No.
You didn't get the museum scene? So I got it. So I did the crown thing as well, and then I spoke to I spoke to Karen for a bit. I spoke to Al, I spoke to Karen, and then it was like saying, a year later. And then I was in the museum with Al, and he was like, hey, Joe. And then went over, and he's like, there's a few people you might want to meet. And I met, like, the modern day version of all the same characters. So they all got released from being in gold, and they were there living modern day lives. And, like, one was like, oh, I work at the bank and stuff. And
do they know who you are?
Yeah, they remember. You're like they don't remember you, but they all know what you did, and they all say you're like the prophet or whatever. And you see like what they're all doing now. Rufus isn't there. He's the one no-show. But everyone else, even like the philosophers there in the museum and saying it's so wonderful to be in a modern culture and stuff. And you chat to them all, and then you go, you go down.
Do you know what I might have done? I might have been so afraid of you that I turned off the game. When she started
it's gameplay. It's gameplay.
No, when she started to repeat the ending that I'd already seen, I was like, oh, I've done it.
Maybe because then there's even after that there's another, because you get down to the end and Al's like, remember all of those other gold statues that there were lying around? Well, they got something they want to say to you. And he goes, and then you look down and there's like a whole people like cheering you.
I literally can't believe it. I reckon what's going to happen, we're going to finish recording, I'm going to go in my room, turn my Xbox on, and I'm going to resume, and that's going to happen.
My only thought is did you persuade him to release everyone else? Because if you didn't, maybe they were all still left as gold.
Do you know what? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Because the credits didn't roll earlier when I quickly finished.
Yeah, and then I'm going to get a name like Persephone? Persephone. Persephone's there as like, because she's a human now, and she's there as well, just saying like, hey, like this is my life now. I used to be a god, but like
it sounds quite lame.
So it was like when it first got to that scene, and I saw it as modern day, and I went up to the first person, and you see Galerius there in like jeans and a hat or whatever he's wearing, like that. There's like,
I can't believe I didn't see this. I'd love to see that.
Like there's such a novelty to it, and I didn't speak to, because you can go through and talk to everyone, but I kind of just handpicked the people that like I cared about, and like you know, like I didn't chat with Octavia, for example. You know, I didn't.
I didn't fear you, I would have done that.
It was bad. I can't believe I was trying to be all nice and be like, oh, it's only us that decided we can change the time.
Well, maybe I can watch it on YouTube afterwards.
Yeah. That would be good. Because the other thing I was going to ask about is, one, do you think there would be, and if there is, would you want one, a sequel?
I was actually thinking about that, and I was thinking like, how on earth would they ever follow this up?
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to follow up with something that's similar, but none of the same characters, none of the same settings.
Yeah.
They'd have to do like like those Dark Pictures anthologies?
Yeah, so like kind of a similar tone, but or standalone stories. Yeah.
And also, I mean, the twists and turns were so good in that game that they're going to struggle to get to that level again.
The reason I asking it is because there's a bit at the end where it's not. I think you're talking to. There's someone you're talking to, but they're talking about Karen or Sharon, whatever they want to be called. And it says, and you're sort of like, oh, what they up to? Like, you know, now this is all done. And it says that they're building a new underworld, and like it'll be interesting to see what that would be. And it might just be a throwaway
she's building
line.
It on her own.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's something along those lines, or she's helping design it.
Right.
And they're talking, and then there's a bit that the way they word it makes me think that could be a hint, or maybe it was just a throwaway line that I'm reading too much into. But I feel like that's the way to do it. It needs to be another underworld.
Well, maybe they've done it just in case it sells enough and they want to make another one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to see. I'd like to play. I'd definitely play another one. I really like this game. So there was a few bits in it that made me laugh and a few bits that made me cringe, but like it was all part of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm glad that I'm happy it went with the tone and the levity and the comedy and the lightheartedness that it went for, but while still tackling some serious like subjects. Like, do you have like a takeaway for what its message or what its main theme is?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it? Oh, I think even though your main character is quite snarky, he's got a bit of a way about him that I don't know if I agree with.
Well, it's because you're a modern day person with like all of these, they're all like, kind of speaking a bit old worldy, and you're just like, chill out, mate. Like, to be fair, I'm annoyed I couldn't just run through and freak them all out with my torch. The amount of times I shone torches in people's face.
Same.
Yeah, like, there was one line when it's the hermit philosopher guy. And if you have your torch when you go up to him, he's like, "Whoa, what an amazing torch you have!" What's that lantern you've got? That's the only time. But I assume that would be a thing you can use in some way to freak someone out that you're a wizard or something.
Especially because it's only one of two things you have.
Yeah. It seems you feel like if they're going to let you keep the torch, to let you use it, or when you go somewhere dark, grab a torch off the wall or something. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
So I feel like the message, not that deep, but anyone can judge anyone else for doing right or wrong.
Okay, that it's
the context. Every situation is different. You can't just be like, well, you stole this thing, so therefore you're evil, because it might be they're stealing it to feed their family because they themselves had something stolen from them. Like, which is like not the deepest meaning.
Well, it kind of goes a bit deeper because it kind of talks about how like people's culture and religion affects how they view a sin, or the law as well. Because some people say like, oh, a sin is anything that breaks the law, and then other people would think like, oh, you were not selling someone antidote to poison and wanted to rip them off. How is that not a sin? But me stealing an apple is like your thing's way worse, and like, and who is this God to judge that? And then you speak to the god and he's like, I'm so great, and then you kind of like say, well, no, you're not, and he's like, oh yeah, I guess you got a point.
So it is like the context in which someone is doing wrong needs to be considered. Basically, like, how in the Bible it's got like the commandments, they're kind of actually redundant, really, because you need to judge every situation on its own merits.
Yeah.
But that's not something the game taught me. Like, I already knew that. I'm not like, I'm a 30-year-old man. Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't like, I'm enlightened. Like, I can't believe it.
Oh, I'm going to stop punching old ladies now. Play this game. There's my Thursday ruined. I'm really woke now. Now this game's told me that. I mean, I don't think it's trying to, because I would be annoyed if it try to do it in an obvious way, like, hey, we're going to teach you something, because that would annoy me. But I think that's the theme, and it discusses the theme, but it never, I don't think I ever felt like the auteur, the director of the game, was giving me their opinion and saying this is right. It was like, let's discuss this interesting topic of what it means to consider what's right or wrong.
Definitely. You hit the nail on the head. 100%.
Yeah, and then also a little bit about what you're saying about the cultures and how like we're kind of just repurposing each other's religion. They focus quite a lot on that with the Kabash, the Egyptian character, and him kind of struggling with that. And that's from quite a few different characters. They're sort of like almost like they know the truth but kind of ignore it because they want to kind of carry on with the way that they usually are. And there's a few different characters that kind of discuss things along those lines.
And also they're like, how dare you? Like, how dare you even suggest that? But then actually, when you kind of have it all laid out in front of you, you can see how these things are just repeated. Well, I mean, historical accuracy, though, I don't know anything about. I'm ignorant. Everything the game told me, except for the fact that people turn to gold, I was like, I'm going to assume that's real. So,
what did you think about the little facts that would pop up? Almost like kind of some of your favorite old Capcom games where you can just look at stuff and they go like, "Oh, there's a pot," and then have a little bit of like information about like the history.
Yeah, there was a few I found. Well, actually, I found all of them. I got the achievement for it. For like, you can find fables and myths within the world. So yeah, I mean, it was a good bit of a juxtaposition against the fact that it's completely made up.
Well, no, also like there was just something strange about like the way they would word it. Sometimes they would always almost have a bit of personality. Like I looked at there's like a cooking stove, and it was like, God, it must be awful cooking in here without any like chimneys, but that's something that the servants had to worry about, I suppose. And it's like a little bit like playful, and I'm like, who's this narrator? Who is this, me thinking that, or like, but then no, because it's giving me information, so it's not my character. So that was I didn't mind it, but it was a little bit odd, I think.
Also, that's written in quite a funny way, isn't it? Like it's quite funny the way it plays out.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't mind it, but I did think that was a kind of a strange thing that was kind of it stood out to me. And like anytime something stands out to you, you got to be like, why is this suddenly standing out?
Yeah, it's like you were saying about the torch as well. Sorry, just to go back to that.
Yeah,
like no one mentions the torch, the same as no one mentions the bow, except for Galerius. He's like, why have you got a bow on your back? But like all of the guards are just like, hello, citizen. Like they don't seem to care, even though it's like a known thing that all weapons have to be thrown away.
Yeah.
So every time, as soon as I had the bow, I was like, "Oh my god, I need to hide," because if someone sees me, they're going to be like, "Oi!"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they make a little mention, like, "Oh, how come you're allowed a weapon?" It's like they don't make a big deal out of like this whole massive. They freaked out when the assassin showed up. How do they know you're any different? If you're re-looping.
Also, I think an unthreatening character that assassin was. He like walked like really slowly, like, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go and kill the guy," and he literally just like strafing around him, like.
Yeah, and he's not like, I've got to go kill this person unless you like want to chat for a bit.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I'll forget you said that, but
yeah. I think what a lot of it came down to in the bits that, like, if they spent, I think they spent after like ignoring the mod, and they did expand a lot from the mod. I think they spent like 4 years on this game. So like, I'm not saying that this game should have been like this. Like, I think what they did is amazing, and release it. It's very polished and a complete game. But I think if they had more time, they shouldn't have spent it like expanding it in terms of characters or settings, but just making more varieties. Like playing other games. I don't know if you played Outer Worlds, but that's
I did play that.
It's very similar in terms of the way the dialogue works and how it all links together. And that felt like no matter what I do, the game's going to work it out and it's going to carry on the story. Whereas this game, it felt like they know the exact path they want you to go for the missions, and you could try and do something else that, in the game world should work, but they didn't consider it. And I felt like I would kind of reach those moments regularly. Even little things like when Virgil's, you kind of find out that it's probably a Christian that was doing these messages. And I was like, oh, I just spoke to Octavia and she secretly mentioned she's a Christian, but it didn't even give me the option to question her. And it's sort of like, I know it turned out it wasn't her, but like that would be a natural thing to do. And you think they would add just one line saying like, like it would never be me or something.
Yeah.
There was a lot that was an example, but that moment came up a lot. And I think that's where I think the biggest improvements could be, is just allowing for you to do more and solve things in more creative ways rather than exactly like the route they kind of considered.
Yeah, just the scope. I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't be like that, but the scope is so massive for the four king paths, like it is huge, like unbelievable. I can't even, I've just finished it and I can't even comprehend how many potential paths there could have been if they hadn't done that. Like 12 minutes is like the exact opposite as well. Like we mentioned earlier, that game is like, if you don't do exactly what they want, you just die. Basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as I said, I think what they did is amazing. And considering it's only a few people, like this isn't a criticism. I guess it kind of is, for like just looking at the game. I'm not saying like they did bad on that, but like that is where, that's any time my immersion broke and I was like, oh, I'm banging against the limits of what they could reasonably develop in a game, and it kind of takes me out of it. Rather than thinking, this character wants this, I'm thinking, oh, the game developers wouldn't have assumed that I would do it that way. That's the only thing. But yeah, no, like, overall, like, obviously this isn't a review, we're not going to give it a score or anything, but I mean, I loved it. Yeah?
No.
Go on then.
Nah.
Go on then.
Okay, I'll give it 7 golden bows and 2 stolen loaves of bread that I didn't get penalised for out of 10. So
okay, I'm going to give 7 keys to the same door that I picked every time, and 1 golden statue stuck outside of a wall. That's out of 10. That's what I'm going to give it.
Did you find out what the bread was for?
No, I didn't ever find a use for it.
I just had so much of it. I'll eat that when I get damaged, and you can't. So
yeah. There's a weird thing with the kind of the comments or the narration is when you go to it and you see the bread and it's in like a bakery, and I'm like, oh, if I pick it up, I'm stealing. But I looked at it and it's like, there's bread here. Looks like they probably left it for anyone to take. And it's like, what? Basically, it's the game saying you can pick this up without it being a sin, but there's no way you'd know that. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Some
like
of the stuff has
a little.
You to take it.
Some of them have a little red, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, but then, actually, saying that in dialogue choices, if it was a lie, I never did that. So would that count as a rule? No. You could lie and like bluff and stuff. But every time I tried it, it never worked. I just gave up doing it. They'd always call my bluff. Right. I just assumed that it would just break the game. So I just
break
the game. I mean, end the game. So I didn't do it.
Yeah, no, lying wasn't a sin, but I just never got away with it. Maybe that was the message.
Yeah.
Right, so now, normally in the podcast, in future podcasts, this would be where we'd put it on our leaderboards to rank it. So I guess we can, we'll do it now anyway. Where do you want it to go on the old list?
Well, after some deliberation, I think it's going to go about halfway up my list.
Halfway up?
Yeah, about halfway up, yeah.
See, I think from the criticism I said, I'm going to put it at the bottom of my list. Yeah, but also the top. Yeah. Just so yeah, so obviously this podcast is only going to get better with age because at the moment there's only one game. Next time we do it, we're going to be choosing whether that game is better than this one other game. But eventually, hopefully, we'll have a much longer list and it will be more interesting, this part of the podcast. But I will say, if there were a lot of other games, I still think this will remain high up on my personal list. We'll see whether it lasts on our joint list.
When you said this podcast will only get better with age, were you like reassuring yourself, me, or the people listening? I think...
Everyone in the room, all of the above. It will be fine, everyone. Yeah.
It will get better. I mean, we did briefly, we may not do this, but we did briefly talk about doing some bumpers where we could put more than one on. Yeah. We were talking about maybe we could put on like a series of games that we like to fill it up. But I think it's just going to gradually grow. Like, this is only a now problem. Like, even once it's 10 on the list, that's still like a fine thing to try and order it. So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, speaking about growing the list, do you want to announce what the next game will be? Yes. So the next game we are going to be tackling is Onimusha Warlords for the Nintendo Switch. It wasn't originally on the Switch. It was originally on the PlayStation 2. They've recently ported it. And we would like to hear your opinions. Yeah, so what's the best way for people to share their points? Oh, yeah, bonus points. Did you actually call the show bonus points when it started? Yeah, I mentioned bonus points. Okay, good. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's up there somewhere or up there on the video. So they can... We're basically at the bonus points on Instagram and Twitter. So you can either at us or comment on like a picture or something and we'll see it. Yeah, what I think I'll generally do in the future is when we announce the next game, I'll tweet out, next game we're doing is this. Like, we're generally going to have about 2 weeks between each episode of this. It may sometimes be slightly longer if we're, playing, a new Fallout game or something and we need more time to play. And then if you reply to that with any points, and we want... if you've got like a question or just... what kind of would be great is like very specific points rather than like
what did you think of the ending or something? Like some very small detail that you picked up on or something interesting would be good. And then we'll kind of just scatter them throughout the podcast as we go.
Yeah, great. I hope to hear lots of responses about Onimusha.
Yeah, so and as Ollie said, we're playing the Switch version, and it's kind of like a HD remake. Is that right? Like it's not a remaster, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it has much in the way of quality of life updates either, except for maybe you can save anywhere.
Nope.
You can't. Okay, yeah, you started it, haven't you? Yeah.
No, but because it's on the Switch, you kind of can, because you just put it on standby, I guess. If you want to play it, it's not a very long game, so you should have plenty of time before listening to this, if you're listening to it when it was released, in order to play it. And then, that will be coming up soon, and then there'll hopefully be one of these every other Friday is what we're planning to do. So that should be the release schedule.
Nice. All right, great. I think we're done.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you all for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Cheers. Bye.